Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special episode of The World Today. We are going to discuss a lot of headlines published on national and international websites, and we are going to focus mainly on our regional and internal issues. Let me first welcome our dear guest live here in the studio, our strategic and economic expert, Dr. Khaled Abdelazim. Hello, Doctor.
Hello, how are you doing?
I hope that you are going to enjoy your time with us, as we are going to discuss, as I said, a lot of headlines, and we are going to start, if you permit me, immediately. And our first headlines are coming from Al-Ahram Online. From Al-Ahram Online, we read, up to 1,770 Egyptians have returned from Libya. Egyptians flee Libya through the Saloum border after Egyptian airstrikes against the targets of Daesh in the country on Monday, and until Thursday morning, up to 1,770 Egyptians had returned home from Libya. The head of the Security Directorate in Egypt's Western Governorate of Matruh said so, and he also said, who is Major General Anani Hamouda, told MENA that tight security measures have been taken at the Saloum border where many Egyptians are fleeing Libya. And before we continue into this, I should also add that our Minister of Civil Aviation, Hussam Kamal, said that the very first flight going to Derbez Airport in Tunisia left on at 4 p.m. Cairo local time to evacuate more Egyptians who are fleeing the horrible situation in Libya. Sir, whenever we are talking about what's going on our western gate in Libya, as our head of state said more than once, it's a global threat. It's not only directed to a special direction or a special state. First, before going into the details of the issue on other domains, let me first take your opinion about the Egyptian reaction to what happened.
Of course, the Egyptian reaction was very firm, and it was also at the exact time. I think that related to this news, the Egyptian reaction will come even more fierce if the platform is clear, i.e., when we have our Egyptian people, expatriates working in Libya, hopefully coming back and returning, and we should welcome them by coming back, because the situation in Libya is not a situation for work. It's a battle. It's a battlefield, and the military and the Egyptian army, we do not want this to be repeated. First of all, Egyptians being terrorized like that and beheaded and all that stuff, but also if anything la qadar Allah happens, or if we need to react another time, we need to be more fierce even, because the Western gate has been always a peaceful gate throughout the history, and this is one of the first times in the history where we have problem in the West and not in the East, which is amazing to a certain extent. And definitely, I believe that what has happened is very reactive and is very strong, and makes us confident in the military, makes us confident in the leadership, and gives us for the first time as well that Egyptian blood is not cheap blood. Egyptian blood is blood whether they are people coming from any place in Egypt, whether they are coming from any religion, as long as they are Egyptians, any social class,
simply they are Egyptians, and that's it.
We will not tolerate Egyptians to be killed like that.
But unfortunately, it's a long battle and a long war. And the head of a state said it more than once, that it's not something which is going to be ending between a day and night. And the headlines coming from the Daily Star is saying more on this.
But sorry to interrupt me. I believe that sometimes a long war and such like that makes us more united and gives us more.
Who is us?
Us as the Egyptian people. We should be more united and we should be more stronger.
My coming question is going to be about this us. Should it be only the Egyptians or the international community? But after reading the Daily Star's headlines. From the Daily Star, we continue to read. Daesh militants find a strategic foothold in chaotic Libya. Libya, virtually a failed state in recent years, has succeeded in one way. It's providing perfect opportunity for the Daesh to expand from Syria and Iraq to establish a strategic foothold closer to European shores. whenever I'm going to take the words of the Daily Star, speaking about Libya now as the safe haven of Daesh terrorists coming from the large swaths they have taken from the lands or the territories of Syria and Iraq, and now just south of the Mediterranean, to be that much close to Europe and to be again a global threat. This us you were kindly referring to.
Yeah.
Is it going to be only Egyptians?
No. If you look at Daesh plans and plots and the map they have produced shows that they do not have any borders. And they were in Syria, in the borders of Syria, and then they became in Iraq, and now they are coming to Libya. And you have many of these terrorist groups rejoining them and changing even the name under them. So believe it or not, you have many of these groups could be in European countries as well, and you can come up in the morning, and what happened in Australia, for example, and in Sydney
and in Copenhagen,
and
Charlie Hebdo,
exactly right. So these are dormant groups. These are groups that could be now lying, sleeping, but once they have the signal, they may come up and do other terrorist acts, not only in the Middle East, but in Europe, of course. And of course, these people, they are trying to take it in gradually. I mean, they are concentrating on areas where there are weaknesses. So they went to Iraq, where there is a weakness, because Iraq had so many things happening inside, the internal conflicts. Syria have internal conflicts, and they went to Libya. So they go to places where these places are not stable. I mean, expect them to be in Yemen very soon as well. You will have something in Yemen by that, and it's already happening, as you are rightly saying. So they go to areas where they can survive, where they can develop, where they can where they can have grounds, where they can be, where they can train, where they can do acts and plans and all that stuff. And this is the root of the problem. I mean, when you have things like that happening, you do not wait until they grow. You do not wait. You have to cut them from the roots. You do not wait at all. I think that the Egyptian army is doing this exactly. I mean, I think there is a map of all of these groups in Libya and in different places. But as you rightly have said, we need definitely, as the president has asked, this is not against Egypt. This is against the whole.
Two reasons behind asking this question. Number one, whenever we are talking about Daesh, there's the American allies and those NATO allies. I think more than 40 countries are there to compete with from 20 to 30 gunmen or terrorists in Iraq and Syria. And till the moment, we don't think that their war is a successful one. It's only the Peshmerga of Kurds who are doing great on the ground. But about the Americans and their allies, there is a big question mark.
Definitely,
here. So,
the big question mark is whether they want Daesh to make turbulences in the Middle East, and then like what happened in Afghanistan, and then once they finish their mission, then they would react against it. This is one scenario, i.e. the scenario is that this Daesh is being there to destabilize the whole area in the east and in the west, and especially that Egypt is one of the countries that survived all of these turbulences, and creating Daesh. I mean, you know, of course, the triangular threats of the Arab countries, Syria, Iraq, and Egypt. And Syria and Iraq, you have lots of turbulences.
If you permit me, sir, this means that they do not learn from previous lessons. I mean, if Washington created, or at least helped in creating Osama bin Laden, for instance, they were awarded and rewarded by the 9/11 attacks.
This is exactly right.
Okay, then if they helped, or at least they let Daesh to grow, then they are going also to be suffering from similar attacks, or at least not to be that much safe and secure at the most powerful state in the world.
You are definitely right. I mean, these organizations, if they play it with the intelligence agencies, they probably would say that we are with you, and then they would probably internally having a transition situation where if they achieve their targets, if they become more stronger, they will react even in other countries. But in European countries, in the West in general, definitely. I mean, the way sometimes the interests of the West, be it the United States or some of the European countries, is portrayed in the Middle East through this terrorist organization, if this is one of the scenarios, it's not the right way to deal with us in the Middle East. This has proven not to be the right way. the right way to deal with us Egyptian people and Arab people and all the people in the Middle East is communication and talking to us and not creating for us problems. We are here. This is our land. We will survive, and nobody is going to divide our countries. And we will stay strong. And believe it or not, these kinds of acts, as I said before, makes us much more stronger. By the way, even the Egyptian army, if they go east and west and all that stuff, I believe that the Egyptian army has been for a long time training. Now they are acting. They will see the Egyptian army training by action. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying is that we haven't been doing actions since 1973. Now we are doing actions. Let's do actions. If they want us to do action, let's do action.
But then they are going to regret every and each minute they have not given it a second thought not to evoke the monster.
Yeah.
But again, returning back to this unity, as I told you that I have two main reasons. The second reason is we were talking about what's going on the ground, but on the diplomatic front, as you know, of course, that there is a 3-day summit which was held in Washington, and with the attendance of many of the high-ranking officials, topping the list. Our top diplomat, Sameh Shoukry, was participating, and the Libyan Foreign Minister, Mohammed al-Dairi, and again, Ban Ki-moon, the General Secretary of the United Nations. And today, Sameh Shoukry met with John Kerry, and he met also with Federica Mogherini, the EU Foreign Policy Chief, and they tackled a lot of issues, topping the list what's going on in Libya and regionally regarding the war against terrorism.
Yeah.
But many of the Western powers rejected the Libyan request to lift the embargo on them, on giving them weapons or providing or supplying them with weapons to fight those criminals and those terrorists on their own land. Are you with the lifting the embargo or with the keeping the situation like what's going on now? Because the NATO process or the NATO attempt in Libya ended with this chaotic situation. So do you think that it's going to turn into civil war, or it's going to turn into a war which is going to eliminate the hideouts and to eliminate the terrorists from its roots, as you've kindly mentioned before, or how is it going to be?
It's a very difficult question because in Libya now there's not still a proper government in order to deal with the situation. I mean, the problem with the lifting the embargo is that, okay, you may have weapons coming into Libya, but you may have weapons coming into the wrong hands as well. And this is another big problem. I'm not saying that the current military is the wrong hands, but you never know. I mean, you remember most of the Gaddafi weapons storage area was actually penetrated by such groups, and at the end of the day, you bring arms and weapons into the country where it is divided and where these people can actually attack some of these places where you have these weapons and all this stuff. Then you may have a more difficult situation. I believe that the right process is at least to make sure that there is a proper government and there is a proper government that with the proper area of the country that all the Western countries and the USA and all the Arab countries can deal with in a proper way, and then you may lift the weapons embargo. This is my own personal belief. However, many other people may not agree with me. But in the meantime, in order to help them to have this proper government, sovereign governments in Europe and in the US and in Egypt and all that should help in this process. How they should help in this process? By combating terrorism as well. If terrorism is coming to our I mean, the terrorism is to our west, to the west direction, but it is still to the south of Europe. I mean, Italy, for example, is suffering a lot now from the number of people who are leaving Libya and coming to illegal migration to Italy. You will have an enormous amount of socio-economic problems, not only political problems and terrorism. That the right solution for it is to establish a proper Libyan government and to lift the embargo and to strengthen the Libyan army in order for the Libyan army to extend its power across Libya.
I hope that what you're talking about is going not to be only a dream, but a process going on to come true, because I think whenever we're talking about politics, this is a game which I'll never understand. And if we do not going to restore to the conspiracy theory, so it's easy to have those elements and to have priorities and to implement them on the ground, or this is going to happen. From the Washington Post, car bomb blasts hit eastern Libya and at least 30 killed. A car bomb explosion in eastern Libya killed at least 30 people on Friday in a region facing pressures from militants, including factions pledging loyalty to the Daesh terrorist group. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the bloodshed in Al-Qubba, a town near the Mediterranean coast, but a Libyan army spokesperson, Mohammed Higazi, told the reporters that the attack bore the hallmarks of Daesh militants who have battled security forces in the area. You know, it's now some sarcasm to add this statement. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Who else?
Well, I mean, this is exactly, if you look at this scenario, this is almost the scenario that happened in Iraq after the invasion of the United States.
March 2003, the fall of Baghdad.
Exactly right. I mean, when you had so many groups, so many militant groups fighting each other and so many bombs in Iraq everywhere, and then after all of these people die, unfortunately, people start realizing that, or some people will intervene from externally somehow, and they will bring people together in order to create a political settlement or a political situation. But here the problem is that these are not tribal people. These are people who may have come to Libya external from outside of Libya.
They came
from Libya external.
And so,
Libya. It's different. When you have Libyan people differing, tribal differences, whatever differences, you can bring them together, and they all have a share in their country. But when you have people coming from outside, they want to destabilize. It's almost like kind of an occupation, by the way.
Yes.
It is an occupation because they want a base. This is their terrorist base that they are creating, and they are using Libya because it's weak government and it's weak military at the current situation, and so they are using it exactly like what's happening.
So you're saying that the liquidity of the state
definitely
was the main reason or the main source of attraction to those mercenaries who came to Libya.
Definitely, any state which
do whatever they like.
Any state which will have a liquidity situation is a state which will attract terrorist groups for sure.
Yeah. And from the Gulf Today is also speaking about the arms embargo. Libya's foreign minister demanded that the UN Security Council lift the arms embargo so his country can fight the Daesh group as it establishes a presence in North Africa and moves closer to Europe. Well, also the Gulf Today mentioned that Egypt responded strongly to the beheading of the 21 Egyptians who were killed recently there. Sir, I should also here a little bit mention the statements by the Libyan Prime Minister Abdullah al-Thani, who accused Turkey of interfering in Libya domestic affairs and warned that the government could expel Turkish companies. And on the other hand, Turkey responded in another way, that they wanted an apology from Libya because what they have said, according to the Turkish sources, of course, has nothing to do with facts on the ground. Turkey, let's focus on Turkey first before to Qatar. The international community, I think that facts are that clear in front of every and each of the countries, and in specific of the big powers. I'm not going to say if you were wearing their shoes, but how should we do to unite against special countries or states which proved a day after the other that they are a real threat?
I have an opinion in this particular situation whereby I think that Egyptian people and Turkish people, they love each other.
Sure.
Egyptian people and Qatari people, they love each other. Okay. We are talking here about governments.
Regimes.
Yes. Yeah. And the problem with these two particular regimes is that they did not recognize what has happened in Egypt. In Egypt, what has happened was exactly Egyptian people came out in the streets to prevent a situation of liquidity in Egypt. And we succeeded, alhamdulillah, or else we could have been like other countries, God forbids. And they do not want to acknowledge this. This regime does not want to acknowledge this. However, there are many, by the way, Turkish people, by the way, there are at least half of the Turkish population, even more, are not pro-Erdogan or pro-his regime, by the way. And we should support. We are not trying to make a coup in Turkey or whatever, but we should support dialogue and communication with Turkish people and Turkish political parties that recognizes Egypt and recognizes Egypt's role and recognizes this very strong relationship between Egypt and between Turkey. And hopefully by these people could also play an important element in changing. Also, by the way, Turkey and Qatar has got a lot of economic interests in Egypt and in Libya and in many other countries in the Gulf, by the way. There are many Turkish companies who work in the Gulf, in Egypt and in Libya. And we should actually stabilize this. I'm not saying, because these entrepreneurs has nothing to do with the regime, but these entrepreneurs could play a very important role with the regimes in order to make them change, hopefully, their minds, or to change the regimes in political elections or in parliamentary elections, in order to create an environment.
Our Minister of Finance, Mr. Ashraf, of Investment, Mr. Ashraf Salman said it more than once, that whenever we are talking about investments, whenever we are talking about trade relations, these has nothing to do with these political turmoil, and we do have investments from Qatar, we do have investments from Turkey, and we do have companies working here, and we are welcoming every and each investor who is going to come and to attend the summit, which is going to take place, inshallah, next month in Sharm el-Sheikh, our economic summit. But here, are you saying that it's not only the diplomatic solution, it's not only the economic, it's
people,
not, of course, the security.
People in Turkey, normal people in Turkey has to realize that through media campaigns, through dialogue, through people-to-people visits, there are political channels, whatever, they have to realize that what's Egypt is stable. This is the will of the Egyptian people. We are happy. We should. They should look at the very strong and lengthy relationship that has been through the history between Turkey and Egypt. And if you go now to your parliamentary representative and tell him, we believe that we need to have a better relation with blah 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 country because such and such. This is where it should come. I believe that this is...
So whenever you're talking about media, sir, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was keen since day one after occupying the presidency chair, according to our will, of course. He was very much keen, I think monthly or maybe twice a month or something, to meet with editors-in-chiefs, whether from Egypt or from all over the globe, with high-ranking media figures from Kuwait, from Europe. Just yesterday, he had a long interview with editors-in-chief from the Nile Basin countries of Africa. A day earlier, he was with Europe One Radio, before with Arab editors-in-chief from Kuwait and from UAE and from many other states. I don't want to forget one of them. Speaking to the media, and especially the head of a state, to what extent do you think that this is important, especially in this very critical period of our modern history in general, that our voice should not only be here or even in the region, but to describe the real situation in Egypt to the whole world?
It's extremely important, and for a head of state to do all of these activities, I think that this is an enormous amount of burden on him, as much as he has lots of other burdens. And this is where I'm coming from, is that the president has a role, but this is not his only role. He has many other roles, and he should be dedicated to the other roles that can extract his energy and all that stuff. And we are the people who can, people to people, the cultured people, the people who can speak in political and in social and economic, like with the visits we've done to Ethiopia for the Nahda Dam and all that stuff. This should be a process which is not just one process, and we say that we have visited Turkey, people to people or whatever, or we once at one stage we had the head of one of the parliamentary political facts, which is the fact that is not with the Nahda and Adala, I think. He came here and he said very nice, and we interviewed him in the TV several times, and I watched that interview. This should be a repeated process. And when you were talking about that, I also remember very well that during all the interviews with our president is that he never tried to attack presidency in both of these countries. He was always very keen to be very diplomatic in his words, because he's leaving the door open for because these countries at the end of the day, at one stage in history, they were we had very good relations with them, and we still have good relations, as I said, people to people, and it's only regimes. And remember that regimes change. People does not change.
Yeah.
So the right political way to do things is not to divide the people to people.
Yes.
The right political way is to make people to people still there. I mean, if we had a problem, we could have cancelled all the tourism flights to Istanbul and backwards and all that, or we could have cancelled people going as expatriates to Qatar. But we never done that because we think that we should still stay people to people, should be communicating.
It's very tough and hard to be always the big sis. And
yes,
Egypt
yes,
is always the big sis.
Yes.
What's going on in Tunisia? And this is from the World Bulletin, to listen to Al-Ghannouchi and what he's saying about Libya and his opinion on that. Tunisia's Ghannouchi opposes military intervention in Libya. Tunisia's Rashid Ghannouchi said he opposes any military intervention in crisis-hit Libya. We are against any military intervention in Libya, Ghannouchi, the leader of Al-Nahda movement, said in a video footage posted on the movement's website. We call on our sons, brothers, and elders of Libya to lay down their arms and react positively with initiative championed by Algeria and the United Nations to help prevent foreign intervention. Again, are we here talking about Libyans fighting each other? I mean, don't we see here the real fact that what's going on in Libya is some external conspiracy, far from the Libyans themselves, when the tribals were clashing or fighting because of oil and because of the share of the wealth or the resources of Libya? This was a story. But I think it's now very much clear that what's going on, it's not that.
But at the end of the day, I would have liked him to say also in his speech something about the brutality of what happened to the 21 Egyptians.
This is another point.
I need to know how he looks at that at the beginning, and then how he looks at military intervention. And if 21 Tunisians were beheaded, what would he have said to his people if he was the prime minister at that time? You know, all the people would have asked him to also react. I mean, but I don't see in what he's saying bad things from that side, i.e. if Algeria is able to convince factions in Libya to lay arms and to sit together on a negotiation, people, fair enough, but I doubt that this could happen very easy. I mean, it's very easy to say, but very easy to implement, very difficult to implement. But as I said, I would have liked him to comment on the whole situation. I want to see what he says about the brutality that has happened to our 21 Egyptian brothers. You know, because this was so brutal. I mean, I've never seen something like that in my life. This is to behead people in the 21st century. What's this? Where are we living now? I mean, this is completely amazing. This is completely. I mean, my son, my daughter, my wife, everybody who sees this, he cannot complete the video. He shuts the video down. What's this? This is completely brutal. Brutal.
This has nothing to do with humanity.
You know, if you snipe someone in the battle of war by a bullet or whatever, this is a dignified kind of death and expected kind of death. But to take somebody who's working in order to get some bread to his family in another country, you take him and to use him in what? Not even as a slave, but use him by killing him in such a brutal way.
But our men were, I don't know how they were that much cool and relaxed and feeling that they are going to paradise or what. I don't know what they were looking to.
This is
another story.
Yeah, there's another story, but there is lots of interpretation about that. Nobody knows
exactly what happened. But may God bless their souls. And of course, our condolences now and forever to their families, because nothing is going to say, or no word would say how much they are living really in pain and they are suffering agony for losing their beloved ones. Taking you to Libya, Harold, and here something about economy and investment, and we do have an expert regarding that here too. Turkey will lose its investments in Libya for supporting terrorism. This is Al-Thinni, or the Libyan Prime Minister, Abdullah Al-Thinni. Turkey shall lose its investments in Libya if it continues to support terrorism. We have solid evidence of the involvement of foreign nations supporting terrorist organizations on the ground of Libya. Let's be honest, if there was anything in the past concerning Qatar and Sudan in recent times, they have not had any role in supporting militias. Libya shall ask for sanctions to be imposed on Turkey as a result of interference in Libya's local affairs. We will try to deal with Turkey. We will raise the subject to the Arab League and the international community, because this touches the honor and sovereignty of the state of Libya.
As I said, this is part of the liquidity situation. If you have liquidity situation, you have external forces as well. By the way, many of the external forces would be trying to do things, by the way, for one very important objective, and that's an economic objective, by the way. I mean, many of these countries, at the end of the day, they interfere in order to have probably a government or somebody who would strike economic deals with them at the end of the day. Libya is one of the countries that has only 4 or 5 million people and has much oil.
2 million Egyptians.
Yeah. But look on the other side, and we in Egypt, our interference is very clear.
Yeah.
If we interfered for a reason. We announce our interference in a very brave way, because this is our right to defend ourselves. But we never interfere in such way.
And it was with the full coordination with the Libyan authorities.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly, but I know for sure that there are many Turkish investments, by the way, that has been pushed into the Middle East. I mean, at the time before 2011, Turkey was really targeting to have an enormous amount of economic relations in different countries in the Middle East, including Egypt as well.
The real motive.
And exactly right.
Of the Turkish to vote for Erdogan after Abdullah Gül.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, look, governments or regimes, sometimes they may have struck a deal with a regime that has elapsed and has passed, and maybe that striking of a trade agreement or whatever has costed them a lot of money, or they have built lots of hopes and promises, and for that they, at the end of the day, they have to fight for it. And but I don't believe that fighting for an economic benefit through killing people or allowing people to be killed or facilitating the killing of people by getting arms into a country or interfering in the affairs of another country, that this is ethical at all. I mean, I hope that, I mean, the word ethics in politics sometimes is, you cannot talk about ethics in politics, but I hope that we have ethics in politics, and we should not actually behave as these people has behaved, because I don't think that any economic benefit.
So. Whenever it comes to politics, don't ask me about ethics.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately. Tar, if you permit me, we're going to go immediately to the World Bulletin with Turkey and U.S., because we don't have much time, unfortunately. From the World Bulletin, we read, Turkey-U.S. sign a deal to train and to equip Syrian opposition. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu late on Thursday said Turkey and America signed a train and equip agreement aimed at bolstering Syrian opposition forces. Foreign Ministry Under Secretary Freedom Seniorloglu and the American ambassador to Turkey, John Bass, signed an agreement. And the minister said the two countries had already reached an agreement to train what they call the Syrian moderate opposition, adding that the forces will fight Daesh of Iraq and other terrorist groups, between brackets, on the ground, as well as the Syrian regime. These are the statements by the man himself. I mean, I'm not here interpreting anything.
No. Well, from the beginning of the Syrian crisis, we were not very happy about what's happening to Syrian people, for sure. But then when it turned out to be a volatile situation where you have groups like Daesh coming
and a civil war
and propping up and the civil war, I still don't believe that the solution now for Syria is a solution by war. Or I think it's more.
Let me put my question or my words again, because I'd like you to comment on this in specific.
Yes.
The Turkish minister said that those fighters, I would say fighters,
and
are going to fight terrorist groups on the ground as well as the Syrian regime. Whenever we are talking about a country which is supplying the opposition with weaponry to fight the regime, then don't you think that this is another violation and another way to interfere into the local circumstances or situation inside a country, far from the sovereignty of this country and far from the dignity of those people?
You're right, but remember that even the international world is divided on whether the regime, the current regime in Syria should stay, or whether the current regime in Syria have done lots of brutality to their people in order to go. But I believe that the situation there will not at all end except by an agreement. I remember a very similar situation happened in Lebanon at one stage, and then we had the Ta'if meeting where the whole parties came together, and there was no solution except by that. I mean, you've got the regime now existing. The regime has got its own military power. You've got terrorist groups like Daesh existing. You've got what they call moderate, let's say. Okay, these are three groups fighting, and how can you even differentiate between which one is moderate and which? I mean, I can come to you and I say I'm the moderate, are you going to have a certain criteria to test who's moderate and who's not moderate?
To the international community, because this deal came just less than a week after de Mistura, the UN envoy of the United Nations envoy to Syria, said that there is no solution to the situation in Syria will be implemented without the presence of Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah, without the presence of Bashar al-Assad regime, whatever you want to call it. But remember, we are going in loops. Didn't we have as well some moments in the Syrian conflict where the U.S. was so much against the regime, and then we had some other moments where they were brought to the negotiation table, but the other groups did not come, and now we are turning another, and then Daesh came. So there is no strategy here. This is all kind of reactionary kind of actions that does not have a strategy. Strategy is somebody who wants to solve. He has to study all the parameters on the ground and reach a solution. And always the solution should not be a military solution.
Yes.
Because look, military solutions, especially when you don't have proper two armies fighting each other at borders or whatever, it will never end. Because military solutions which has civil war is like what we call Sa'r, which is, it will never end. It's feeding itself
fire
all the time. Yeah, exactly. You have killed my brother, I'll kill you, and things like that. So I believe that what's the problem of sitting with the current regime? I mean, despite of everything, if you wanna achieve a peaceful situation, or you want to achieve a compromising situation, and
if you want to prevent more bloodshed,
if you want to prevent more bloodshed,
you want to stop the bloodshed.
Exactly right.
Yes.
So the regime is part and parcel of the process. You cannot ignore what is happening on the ground. You cannot ignore it. So I don't believe that this is still going to do a lot of benefit to what's going on. I hope if they are successful to train them to fight Daesh, that would be great.
Let's imagine something.
Yeah.
It's fancy.
Yeah.
Whenever we're talking about the situation in Syria, let's assume that there is going to be next month, for instance, presidential elections, and Bashar al-Assad is going once again to be one of the candidates. Do you think that he has some chances to once again occupy this position?
Yeah, could be. Remember that Bashar al-Assad, as many regimes in the Middle East, they have their own loyal people as well, and people who believe in them. So I don't know if it was a fair election, it would be him or not, but he might have chances, yes, for sure. Because, I mean, people are fighting for him. So there are people who are loyal to him. There are people who believe that he should stay. I mean, whether this is right or wrong, that is not for me to say, because we may differ in all of these things. But at the end of the day, this is democracy. You're talking about an election, so this is democracy. Democracy means that you accept, even if you are on the other side, but you accept whoever comes. However, if whoever comes does not satisfy at the end of the day...
Sir, the interpretation of the word democracy is very flexible.
Very flexible, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's the same. Look, if we are going to implement it here in the Middle East. We are very passionate, by the way.
Yeah.
And it seems that we still have a long time to go.
Exactly right.
To understand and to really understand and to correctly understand the word democracy.
I was just trying to answer whether this scenario could happen or not to have a proper election in Syria, but I also believe that...
Simply, sir, I'm here trying to give some comparisons. After Ali Abdullah Saleh, Yemen is not anymore Yemen.
Exactly.
And even after Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi, after the Houthis and what they have done. After Muammar Gaddafi, after Saddam Hussein. Here, I would say, if the case was different, I would say, okay, let Bashar al-Assad go, and then the case is going to be, or they're going to live in paradise.
Yeah.
But the Iraqis did not live in paradise after Saddam Hussein, neither are the Yemeni people or the Libyan ones.
Yeah, I see your point, and it's a point to be taken and respected. I mean, you're trying to compare the situation before the whole type of revolution that has happened, or whatever you want to call it, which we are currently now suffering from lots of destabilization of things in many countries in these areas that has happened. But for example, if Yemen is an example of what you have said, but Tunisia, for example, to be honest with you, is another example, which is an example of the process has happened and democracy has prevailed, and now you have a president. A new president who is being elected and being elected by the majority of Tunisians, and is not pro the other party, you know, that and this is good in itself. I mean, this process is good. Remember that the socio-economic characteristics of different countries is determinantal. So, for example, if you look at Tunisia and you look at the number of educated people in Tunisia, and the poverty rate is much lower than other countries.
About 10 million
population. Right. And that's why it was successful. But you are right.
Less than half Cairo.
But definitely you are right. Democracy is not something that you press a key like that and it happens. There must be an environment around the democracy in order for democracy to happen in a correct manner.
Tomorrow is another day, and we hope that we are going to be meeting again, but to discuss more cheerful issues. And we hope that our region and our country is going to enjoy prosperity, safety, and security,
Inshallah.
far from those crimes and far from those terrorists
Inshallah.
who really should know that they do not have a place here. Dr. Khaled Abdelazim, thank you very much for being with us, sir. And we're going to leave you with the promise to see you again in the world today.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dear viewers, by this we come to the end of this special edition of The World Today. Till we meet again same time on Nile TV International. Many thanks for watching. This is Nermina Abdurrahman signing off. Have a very good afternoon.